going on, everybody? You guys know me. My name is Sean. Usually see my face here on the YouTube channel for the New Columbia Movement. Today I'm excited to be out here because we are currently up here in Tafton, Pennsylvania, having a fantastic weekend, enjoying the wonderful fall colors at the Northeast Chapter Meetup. This is something that all the chapters make a priority of doing in the New Columbia Movement, is getting together, having a good time, building fraternity with the boys, and it's just absolutely fabulous up here right now. Perfect time of year. So we decided we'd come out here and do a little fireside chat, a little cigar stream, but we'll be potentially a little bit more based than the PragerU cigar streams. Just potentially. Maybe nobody's going to say that bisexuality is the norm. But yeah, so that kind of led us to the conversation of, well, what should we talk about tonight? What should be the good topic? And really it comes down to, what can we do to build fraternity now in the kind of the era that we're living in? Why is it important to build these fraternities, to come out and do things like these, whether it be a getaway weekend like this, or to be a cultural force in the world? And how are we affecting change, both in ourselves, amongst one another, and then in the culture too? And just kickstarting that topic, I know today we were talking about how Stoicism kind of gets misinterpreted, and a lot of people are drawn to Stoicism, men in particular are drawn to Stoicism because they think it's a reflection of detaching from reality, and then it's ultimately not having any emotional reaction to what's going on in the world around you. And Stoicism works to a certain extent in that you can detach yourself from the things that you can't change, but to have no emotional reaction to anything that's going on around you is, what did we say, like psychopathic, almost psychotic, right? And so there's an element of Stoicism that works, and there's a prayer that I really like that reflects this. Here comes the dog, so if she walks in front of the camera at some point, you get to enjoy her presence. There's a point of Stoicism which is reflected in this prayer that I really like, which is, Lord, help me to accept the things that I cannot change, have courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And that's important. And I think that's something that we're all trying to embody here. We can't change the world, but we can change ourselves, and maybe we can change each other. So what do y'all, any thoughts on that? Not all at once.
First thing that comes to mind, of course, is iron sharpens iron. And if you're going to hold yourself accountable and you think you're going to be able to do that by yourself, your bar is going to be really low. And when you meet with friends, you realize, there's 6 of us here. There's, more earlier, there'll be more again. We all have different strengths to offer. We all have different backgrounds. And wisdom is really, experience that you get from other people. In the sense of, I don't need to touch the hot stove because somebody else told me it's hot and it looked like it hurt. So one of the big things about meeting up like this is we can all share different experiences that we've had, different perspectives, and we are united in Christ. We're united as a fraternity, and we can sharpen each other, but at the same time, when we're away like this from the world, we have an opportunity to remind ourselves what is most important. So we're always getting better, we're always building our skills, but we can also treat this like a base camp, which is something Sean mentioned earlier today in one of our conversations.
Yeah.
That brings up to mind as well, talking about Stoicism and that stuff like that. We're just walking through the woods, and these great conversations just happen spontaneously. You don't have to plan them. When you're with base guys that you already have at least one thing in common.
Right.
Really great, deep conversations that are going to actually help shape when you go back to the world. They're just going to happen.
Well, that's the most difficult part, right? Is the isolation, being involved in a world that's completely contrarian to you. Or maybe you're just now formulating the idea of what the world ought to be, and you're trying to, bounce that off of other people, let them be your backboard, and you're not getting the answers that you're looking for, right? And that's, a lot of that goes into who you're surrounding yourself by. And it's easy to feel like you're on an island in a world like that. And that's kind of, dangerous to a certain extent, because that can lead down some other dark paths, right? Or then you become nihilistic about things and you go too far in one direction. And it is really the base camp theory about being able to be grounded in something, right? Because there's a lot of people out there who I think aren't grounded in reality. Let's talk about the whole QAnon thing and how that's become like the honeypot for the boomers, right? There's no grounding in reality. Well, I don't actually have to do anything because, there's this grand, fantastic
Q, trust the plan.
Yeah, Q, trust the plan. Like everything's happening. It's 3, 4, 12D chess. It's just, there's not a grounding in reality. And then I'm sure there's another extreme on the opposite end of the spectrum where you're not grounded in reality either. Like modern liberalism, feminism, all these types of things that we deal with on a daily basis. So having that base camp is important, but it's also recognizing, like, Jeff, you and I were talking about today, is not retreating away from the world, which just can be tempting, right? I mean,
It happens.
right?
It happens.
There's times where I want to go and build my fortress up in the mountains and never have to deal with anything again. And that's kind of the Benedict option methodology that we were talking about, where it's like you're retreating and you're just rebuilding from there. And there's a place for that, but I think we shouldn't just be so ready and willing to abandon our culture. So base camp, But then, the problem is what happens when you actually get a group of guys together who actually care about affecting change and, doing something in the real world and not just arguing on the internet, right?
Specifically that.
Yeah, I mean, and that I think that's a bit of a source of the nihilism too, is that, people hop on different things, social media, Telegram, and, any social media at this point, it has like an endless feed essentially where you just keep scrolling, and it's like endless black pills. And, like Sean was saying, sometimes you might feel like you're alone, or there really isn't anyone to, bounce what you're thinking off of, except for, people online. It can kind of just become like a pit of despair.
Yeah.
And, and that kind of comes into the importance of trying to find, like-minded people that you can interact with, not just online, but you can actually meet up with and, physically discuss, kind of like what we're doing right now.
100%, because one of the criticisms will be, well, you guys aren't doing anything. We got together and we're having a weekend where we're enjoying each other's company and we're building a fraternity. I don't think people realize how important that is, because if you're building friendships off of, or, quote unquote friendships off of what particular aspect of society or modernism that you just hate, that's not a fruitful thing, right? That's very shallow, and you're not going to get very far with that. And so what we're building, and it kind of goes hand in hand with what our movement's all about in the first place, which is we're not a reactionary movement. We're not against something. We can see what's wrong. Everybody can kind of see what's wrong, and they're going to pick sides on that coin. We're about reflecting what we want to build. And if we're not doing that, then we just become a nihilistic reactionary movement that's just angry at something, and we're just out to do that. And the thing is when you're a reflection of what you want to build, and that's in such contrast to what the world is today, you're naturally going to be at the other end of that coin. So you don't have to go out of your way to try to look like the war party, if you will. It'll come to you, right? But the criticisms will come. They'll say, well, a bunch of guys smoking cigars in the woods at a cabin and, in the middle of Pennsylvania. Feds, right? Like, it's the same kind of disarming tactic that I think, the boomers have to put up with or subject themselves to when we're talking about the Q ops or whatever the case may be. Like, Andy, this is your first meetup, right?
Yeah.
Has it, what kind of Fed activities have you borne witness to since you've been here? I mean, is it anything that you would steer people away from, or what?
No, not at all. No, not at all.
I mean, we
it gets talked about so much in groups nowadays. People being feds, but like, it's a rarity, and you can just tell by being with people and stuff like that they're genuine and.
Well, yeah, I could say something on that. With the Fed nonsense, the first question would be, well, what are you planning on doing as an individual, right? That you would be concerned about feds being there. You have 2 feet. right, and you have your own brain and you know how to think, you show up somewhere and you know people are doing something that's inherently wrong, which the reason feds would be poking their nose around 9 times out of 10 has very little to do with ideology usually. Believe it or not, the feds do not have the manpower or the willingness to run around the entire country and police every little right-wing organization right of center that there is. Okay,
That's the psyop. That's the thing.
Yeah, the feds are interested in people that are probably more of a threat than maybe some of us want to give credit to.
Yeah, they're actually messaging stuff. And
there are genuinely evil people out there, and there are people that really do mean harm to others. So the idea is that if you come to an event and you know that the people there were freaking playing board games, Modern Warfare 3 on a 360, you know, we're smoking some cigars, we have a couple of beers, and we just have a good time. We went out hiking. Tomorrow we'll have a couple other different guys come up. We might stop at a local festival that's going on. So you use your brain and figure out when you go to these events. You know, I feel like your parents should have taught you this, or you should have learned this when you were in high school. Stranger danger. You know, show up to an event. If you think things are going bad and that you shouldn't be there, then don't be there. But if the feds are getting called on us, and the feds are going to break down on anything that we've been doing this weekend, then I'll be the first one to say that you know, it's game over at that point.
Saoirse wants to say something.
Saoirse, what do you have to say about this?
She says, "I want more sticks."
She's a
she's
a
fed
dog. She's here to sniff out.
Well, what are you guys actually doing? What are you guys actually accomplishing? Where's your community?
Right.
You know, I mean, we're building a community. Go back to what I was just saying earlier. You don't build a community on this shallow, like, recognition that you all hate the same thing. So you get together and you be friends and you do friendly things. You're building a community. I mean, I've created a better network, I think, in just my involvement in the New Columbia movement than I've had at any time in the past. This dog hits this camera. I'm gonna kill her. Okay, we're good.
And if you let that being scared of Fed stuff or whatever hold you back from actually doing things, it's exactly what some people want.
Well, that's the psyop, right? Because on the one hand, it's a mismanaged bureaucracy and nobody knows what they're doing in the government. And on the other hand, you know, every event where people are trying to affect change is a staged Fed op. It's like, well, which is it?
How many people do they have?
The psyop is, you know, to disarm you from actually engaging in effective change because they want you to be afraid that if you do, maybe some of your Facebook friends are going to unfriend you or something like that, right? Or you're going to get thrown into the brig. And, like, if that's the case, then you're probably actually doing something illegal because, you know, we've gone pretty far in the degradation of our bureaucracy and, you know, our judicial system, but we're not so far where they can just throw you in jail for thinking, for wrong think. You know, maybe we'll get there.
I mean, we're not there yet.
We're not there yet, but, you know, and I think honestly, a lot of the time, it's these people who live in their own worlds and they live in their own realities where they want to affect change. And I talked about this in the last video I did, the purity test, right? They want to affect change without actually affecting change. They want to be able to beat their chest and say that they're doing something while they're just kind of like, you know, criticizing from the sidelines. Yep. And I mean, I don't know what y'all's thoughts are on that, but I have no time for those people. And these are the same people, we were talking about this earlier too, right? And then I'll shut up. That don't honor their own commitments. They talk about they want to live in a traditional world where a man's handshake is as good as a lawyer's contract. But then, you know, it's the simplest things. And we, you know, this is something that we've got to crack down on a little bit internally, but this is part of the fraternity, is building each other up to get better about it. It's the simplest things of just honoring your obligations, right? If you say you're going to do something, you want to live in that world. Well, if you say, well, I'm going to be there, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to be a part of that, then do it, right? Life stuff comes up, family emergencies happen, but you have to make it your priority. And if you don't, that's on you. That's not on anybody else. Because then those are the same people who are going to turn around and say, not enough. It's never enough. It's the never enough crowd. And 9 times out of the 10, they are the ones responsible for it.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, with that as well, I think that, you know, sometimes the people that are criticizing are maybe just trying to find a way, like you were saying, you know, act like they're doing something when they're not.
Trying to find their out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's more of an excuse. And like we all have things going on in our lives. I mean, we all have, you know, things that we have to do, livings to make, and so on and so forth and stuff. But if you want to affect change, then sometimes you got to make some time and find the time to do the simplest of things. And that's where it starts. I think a lot of issues too is that the people that criticize from the sides, they think that there's some one solution. It's like, oh well, like they're waiting for like just that fix to come. And they don't, they think that Rome's going to get built in a day. And, it takes work, and sometimes it does take very simple, basic things to lay the foundation to start actually, like, making momentum into
Right.
changing things.
Well, this is something else I just started thinking of too. We were talking about this today. I think guys a lot have been castrated by the kind of the environment they're in and the society they're in, which is this instant now, give me this materialism. We were reflecting, or at least I was reflecting, and Jeff was putting up with me talking about it, how people really appreciate, say, a season like autumn, which I know you can't really get a glimpse of the leaves here, but I mean, the whole forest just looks like it's on fire with the beauty of the reds and the golds in the leaves. People appreciate autumn because you can't just snap your fingers and get autumn when you want. You can't go onto Amazon and order autumn. You have to wait for it. It comes around. You appreciate it. It's fleeting. And people don't really get that with much anymore. You can get watermelon in winter. This is partly the effect of globalism, which leads into a broader conversation. But because it's the instant now generation, a lot of us have been subjected to that. And I don't think many of us realize how handicapped that has been, especially to the younger generation, to the the Gen Z and the millennials, and the kind of the what's going to be the backbone of any cultural revolution, if there's going to be one, is that they have to get over this hurdle of kind of the dopamine hits that have been castrating them since they were born. Effectively, they were born into a world like that.
And those dopamine hits, like imagine people who could be here right now or are doing other things, but they chose not to. Like, if you have a reason, then yeah, it's understandable. But if not, like some people, yeah, they get comfortable being by themselves. They get comfortable getting those dopamine hits on social media or watching TV, and they're just like, you know what, I like being by myself. And this weekend, it's like they're doing something, but I'm more comfortable just staying here and doing what I do all the time, and they don't.
It's comfort-based decisions.
And this is something, I mean, everybody here that's in any sort of leadership position, me, Sean, Jeff, and Alexander, are all in leadership positions here with the New Columbia movement. But one thing that we've been learning aggressively this year has been that a lot of people are neutered in that sense of it's anxiety is what it is. We've all had to deal with it multiple times, ourselves personally, and then having to be leaders and pushing guys to get out of their comfort zones. The amount of guys that I have had to deal with personally, and everybody else can probably give their stories on it too, obviously not naming names, but to get somebody out of their house to drive 2 hours away for something that's usually 9 times out of 10 is free for them, or at least it could be free if they let us know finance is an issue. It's very difficult to get people out to do these things. And we're talking about college kids, and this is a weekend. It's not that difficult to get out to things like this. And it's not like a fear necessarily. I understand this myself because, believe it or not, before I really started the New Columbia movement and got more involved in things, I was a bit of an introvert too. I was the kind of person that didn't like new experiences. I liked the things that I was comfortable with, and I'm still kind of like that. But I mean, I was just out on I'll admit I'm an urbanite. I don't get out as much as I really should have, especially when I was younger. I was just out on a kayak and a canoe earlier. That's one of the first times I've actually ever done that. Usually not somebody who hikes. I did whitewater rafting with guys, and that's really actually opened me up as a person where I don't have that anxiety. I'm able to go out and do these things, and I know there's a lot of guys within our organization, and there's a lot of guys out there in general that are afraid try these things, and they hamper themselves by not giving it the opportunity, and they really need to start. Once you know that you're in a safe group of guys that are honestly trying to help you, and you have these opportunities, you need to take them, especially when we have so many charitable people in this organization. A lot of times the only thing that's holding people back is the willingness to do it. And
what happens when you don't expose yourself to that in an environment like this, where it's probably the best chance for you to get comfortable with it, is that you effectively destroy your ability to be a leader in society like you ought to be. Because you think you're going to go win the culture war when you're not even going to show up into a friendly event. And I know we're harping on it like it's this event, but I'm just saying in general, wherever you are in the world, whatever church you're involved in, whatever group it is, wherever you could be doing effectively the same thing that is being accomplished here, it'd be super based if you did it with us, but whatever. Then you're effectively castrating yourself from being that positive change in the future. Because, when I was in the Marine Corps, there's not many things that I like to bring up about it, but there's one phrase that stuck with me, which is train like you fight. And that's important because I think a lot of people will make the mistake of assuming that when that day comes, right, it's like the Second Amendment crowd, well, when they come for my guns, whatever, dude. Yeah, you're gonna hand them over because you've effectively ceded ground all the way up to that point. So that's a very basic psychological study.
the Australians.
Yeah. So, but that's the thing. It's like, okay, well, you're not going to be involved into anything up until the point where they've got a gun to your head, right? And then that's the day that you, become Captain America and you decide to fight back. Not happening. It's not. I'll put money on it, and whatever. I lose $50 on it, then I'd be happy. If I win $50 on it, it'd be the expectation.
You don't want to win that bet.
Yeah. Right. So, I guess it's just like for people who are like, and I know sometimes we're always getting new listeners, or the pendulum is swinging right again. So we have new people coming into the space all the time. Sometimes I forget that, and I say things offhand that maybe is new to somebody. We all do. But if you're getting into the space, one of the worst things that you can do is just handicap yourself now by relegating yourself to the sidelines and just following things on the internet. Get involved. Now is not the time to be on the sidelines. You're in a cultural war. You need to be involved. Not sitting back and, it's good if you want to, cheerlead for the John Doyles and, the whoever's of the world who are doing good work and saying good things, but that all means nothing if you're not going to stand up and act. What good is a leader in a movement if he's not going to have followers to back him up when the time comes?
Yeah, it's real big about connections. Like getting out to these in real life events, you make connections that will hopefully last a really long time. You network. It's an example. When I was younger, I played Grand Theft Auto a lot, and I played with these two dudes that were pretty local to me. One of them, they were a little older than me. I was younger, but it was fine. And one of the guys bought a new house, like an hour away from me or something like that. And we played it together for like a year. And then we decided to meet up. We went up to this guy's house that he just bought with his wife, and we just drank, sat in the backyard, I think around a fire like this, and we still send each other memes today, and we text each other a little bit here and there, like send each other based memes. And
Is he a base Christian nationalist?
he could be, yeah. I think he probably is, yeah.
Give him the card.
So always be aware of your stranger danger.
Yeah.
let me riff on the idea of being involved. I think one of the other things sort of on the opposite side of the spectrum is like people might think this is too much. The other problem is that you might think that what you are doing is too little. And I'm always reminded of Teddy Roosevelt's speech about the man in the arena. And it's the man in the arena that counts, not the critic. Very easy to be a critic. What he never mentions in there is how big the arena is or how small it is. You might think, oh, Coliseum, I got to be a gladiator. And then, are you not entertained? But any little thing that is actually doing, instead of just sitting in a room and ruminating, is putting yourself in the arena. Go out and meet people, talk to people, get involved in your church. I guarantee you, wherever you are, there's a church near you, and it might not be a base church, but it's a church where you can start and then make your rounds, figure it out. But any little tiny thing you can do, and it might just be like what Andy was just talking about, playing some games, finding people. There's a lot of sorting you got to do, a lot of figuring out. But every Catholic church has got or every Catholic diocese has a Knights of Columbus. Mm-hmm. They always need people to do stuff. I drive down the street in my town, and I'll see people praying outside the Planned Parenthood, because that's still a thing where I am. Or I'll see them praying a rosary or something like that. Just pull it to the side of the street, get out and pray with them. Mm-hmm. It seems like it's nothing, but it isn't nothing. It's something. It's just, it might be small.
And it encourages them.
It encourages them. And, keep in mind that all the great inventions of the world weren't great inventions. They were just somebody improving a tiny little bit on the previous thing. So there is no great revolution, other than some really negative ones I can think about. French Revolution. Every improvement we have is simply incremental. And what are you doing when you go and you pray in your church, or you go volunteer at a soup kitchen, for example, or you raise a little bit of money and give it to a charity, or give whatever, close the Goodwill, whatever it is, Salvation Army,
or do what I did and shout at feminists out the car.
Well, we did say Christ is King, which is pretty based, I would say. But yeah, even doing that and just telling people, hey, what you're doing is wrong. Now that's a pretty bold thing to do.
Yeah.
You
don't get to that.
You don't start there.
Yeah, that's like step 4.
Yeah.
But then it'll be in those people's head that, a month later they'll think, this guy told me this is wrong, and then they'll be thinking about it. It's going to stick with them.
And then they'll probably seethe, but...
Yeah. But somebody around you might be like, oh, that guy said this thing, and I kind of think that too, so I guess I'm not alone. So my point is, even the smallest thing, as long as it puts you in the arena, is valuable. And I brought out my rosary. This is what they have to take from me before I resist fully, because I'll be in the woods naked with my rosary.
Yeah, I think I want to go around with closing thoughts, and I want to give everybody the opportunity to kind of give one recommendation. If you had to if there's just one guy on the other end of this video right now, and you wanted to give him one recommendation, kind of what would it be? What would you advise him to do? Does anybody want to start with that? I've got mine if nobody else does.
I'll say, kind of springboarding off of Jeff, I guess, as far as absolutists are. It's good to be strong in your convictions. That's a virtue. However, when it gets to the point that you are unwilling to work with others, you're unwilling to compromise in any way, shape, or form, and it gets to the point where it's almost a crutch and an excuse for you to not be active and not do things because the conditions aren't perfectly the way you want, or there's not 50, 100, thousands of people that think exactly to the T the same way you do. You need to understand that people are going to have their own different opinions on certain things and stuff like that, but it's about, and building fraternity too, trying to come together and hash things out and again lay those foundations. People want to start, pretty much at the end, right? But you gotta, lay the foundation first.
You gotta begin with the end in mind.
Yes, yeah. Exactly.
Ruben, you've been quiet.
One key factor here is consistency. We may not change the country tomorrow, or the end of the week, but that does not mean that we don't nudge and stay consistent day by day, and a path is forged and created to move forward. Consistency is key to any success, especially when creating these kinds of movements, these kinds of fraternities. And for them to be successful and long-lasting, there needs to be consistency. And another thing is experience. How much does the modern world create a lifestyle which has no experience, has no real wisdom? Everything is just behind a screen. To really gain the experience, To really gain the wisdom, it must be experienced, and to do that, one must be consistent to live and experience.
Jeff?
I would say the most important thing, and what unites those who will succeed from those who will fail, is build, don't destroy. We talked a lot about fraternity tonight. Fraternity is about building relationships amongst men, boys and men.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it.
You guys can keep going. Everybody else, I'll go.
So yeah, my name's Andrew. Pretty new to the New Columbia movement, and it's my first event with them in person. Just say, like, get out of your comfort zone. The comfort zone that's been built up with the world that we're in now, and just venture out. And if you do that, your comfort zone will obviously expand, hopefully, and you'll just have more experiences in your life.
I guess mine would be just, as a physical token, find things to get involved in your local community. And this is more of a recommendation to myself, and I'm sure there's other people who need to hear this as well.
That's good.
Physically find things that you can go be involved in, and be a part of that, and be a cultural force.
I'd say you need to start living the life that you talk about on the internet. Eventually, it needs to leave. It needs to get off the internet. I was thinking here of what to say, and the one thing that I've actually realized as of recent, this is something I see with other guys I know from other organizations and people I know in general. If you're being an edgelord on the internet, you're a contrarian, you have all the edgy based opinions, nobody's buying the fact that you're not using that as a cover. You're using that as a cover to not get involved with things in real life. Right. Oh man, I can't go out, the feds are gonna get me, I'm just too based, I'm gonna say something based in public. Shut up. You know what I mean? Because the people that talk like that are also the people that would never actually do half of those things, and if they are, stay the hell away from us.
And eventually somebody's going to call you out on that, right? And you're just going to be identified as a hypocrite.
Oh, well, no, then they call you feds. Mm-hmm. They'll call you the Jew Columbia movement. They'll say that you're toothless, and then they creep back into their cell wherever they came from, and then they go back to doing nothing again. So honestly, at the end of the day, you need to get out. You need to be doing something in some way, shape, or form, and not just extreme things, not just marching around DC going rah rah wearing masks, right? You also have to take the time to build relationships with guys and build up a community as well. Because like what Jeff was saying, if your plan is to just set everything on fire and you have nothing that you're going to replace it with, well then your revolution might actually be worse than what we have right now. Yeah. So, we all need to grow up a little bit.
Yeah. Be willing to meet people halfway, meet them halfway and then bring them the rest of the way. But yeah, I think tonight was a good conversation. I always look forward to these little fireside chats. It's probably one of my favorite parts of coming out to events like these. We did one with Jonathan Corey on his podcast, so the last time we were at the Southeast chapter meetup, so I'll leave a link in the description for those too if you guys want to go listen to that one. That was a two-parter actually, so good long conversation if you guys are more of the Joe Rogan long form discussion types. But anyway, yeah, I'll open it up to the comment section too. If you guys have any I'm sure there's a lot of smart guys out there that are watching, because that's our audience. You guys are all awesome and based and red-pilled. Leave a comment in the comment section if you could give one piece of advice to young men, really effectively young men, because that's who we're targeting. What would it be? So I want to hear from you guys. But anyway, appreciate y'all coming out, sitting here watching this. If you guys are interested in joining the movement, you can send us an email, go to the website. We'll link it down in the description as well. We're always looking to bring new people on board. We got a lot of exciting things coming up, looking forward to. I'm looking like I've never smoked a cigar before. Excuse me. And yeah, good night and God bless.